Hi, this is a Siemens fridge freezer. I've decided to fix this myself because I do remember a salesman coming round, repairman, and telling my mother that her Bosch fridge at 2.5 years old was fatally flawed and selling her a new one. So I thought I'd have a go myself. This Siemens fridge freezer has been lasting fairly well. I think it's about 6 or 7 years old. So it's a KB automatic defrosting fridge freezer. I spent quite a lot of time looking at stuff on the internet, and I think learnt quite a lot as I've gone along. They're not nearly as complicated as you think. Firstly, take the plate off the back. You have to pull the whole freezer out, make sure it's turned off before you do it, and you'll see a radiator on this one, which is a bit like a square box with a fan in the middle. It was completely covered in dust. Get the hoover out, suck up all the dust and fluff off it, and this may be quite a good start for fixing your freezer. I've also seen them on the internet, commercial ones which are completely covered in a woolly blanket. Use a paintbrush to get between the fins of the radiator and give it a good clean at the back. Also at the back you should see where water drips down from the automatic defrost cycle. So that is, whenever you open the freezer door, warm moist air comes in and the cold air drops out the bottom, and this gets on the cooling tubes and ices up. Periodically a heating coil, which is so hot I blistered my finger on it, so I knew that worked, will heat up and melt off all the ice. It will go right to the bottom of this unit and into a little trough and out the back. First thing to look for in terms of problems when your freezer's not working, this side started to warm up and this was hardly cold at all, the normal fridge size. Water started to come out at the bottom. I opened up the door and at the bottom there was a plate with a central screw in the midline. These have little plastic caps on top of it, and if you notice at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position there's a little sort of black shape showing. Get a knife tip in there, flip out the cap, and then you can get at the screw. This bottom plate came off, and then you can see what's going on behind. I'll now open up. I've got this working again. It's now down to -22, so I won't try and keep it open for too long, but I'll show you where that central screw is, and then the big plate above, there's another central screw, again with a cap. Take the second cap off, undo the screw, and then the larger plate has little plastic clips, like I suppose a barb on a hook, and they're actually marked where they are with little arrows on the plastic. Take that off, and what you'll see behind is the heating coil below and the cooling coils above. I knew the heating coils were working because I burnt my finger, but the cooling coils were completely iced up, and so was the exit hole. I warmed the whole thing up, got all the ice out, and it started to work for a bit, but not terribly well. Another trick I've learned since finishing is, if you turn on super, open the door, the fan will cut off. And if you press the little thing, it turns the light off, you can hear the fan come on. That happens on both sides in this fridge, and I'm fairly sure, having changed a whole load of components, that it was actually the little motor of the fan which was the problem. You can do the same for super on this side. Press on super, wait till your fan side comes on, open the door, then press the little automatic switch which will turn the light off, and listen for the fan coming on. So that's a simple test to make sure the fan is working on both sides. What happens on this Siemens fridge is there's one cooling system here, and the fan will suck air up behind the white plastic panel and shove it into the other side, which has another fan for directing it, and it goes round in circles. So we're cooling on one side but cooling both sides of the fridge. That I didn't realise at the beginning. Had I known that test at the beginning, I could have just changed the fan. However, other things I've changed. On the right hand side, on the left hand side, about here, was this little transducer held transversely. That's above the heating coil but on the cooling coils, and this would be, I think, telling when the defrost cycle has finished. I changed that as well, so I'll show you where some of these things are. See if we've got enough height on here. Yes, that is a sensor in there behind this little thing. Pull the front out first, hook at the back. These racks have one screw at the front. Undo the screw, pull the little slide out a bit, then pull it forward. The ones right up the top, which you can't see at the moment, have one screw with two little pins. There is a central screw just under there and another one at the back. Where that second sensor was about here. On the right hand side there's one looking like an inline sausage with a wire coming out on each side in silver. That is a thermal switch which things are going wrong will burn out. These two here take the light cover. The light cover is held with a single screw in the middle. This will pull out. At the top back left you will find three plugs. They work the ice tray, which looks like a normal ice tray and tips over to drop the ice down into the ice thing. There's the ice muncher, and I think there's also a supply going down to the bottom. So three plugs right up at the top back left. They have to be nipped and pulled down. Behind this unit there are four screws holding the big motor which turns the spiral in here, and the unit up top left here has two screws going up into the top. I think that's most of them. Other bits and pieces I found. This was the motor at the back. It was enclosed when I took it out and I thought it must be mains, so I plugged it in the mains and flash bang, there was a nasty smell of burning, and it actually says on it 13 volts DC. I do actually think that this was the cause of all the problem, but certainly putting mains across it didn't help. I do wonder whether this is mains and this is actually a transformer in here as well as some electrics. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, I got a new one of these. I got a new transducer. This was about 50 bucks, 35 pound, and the transducer or temperature sensor was about 15 pound. So I've got the whole thing up and running for really quite a modest sum. I think in hindsight that had I tested, I'd have found that this fan motor wasn't working at the beginning and I could have gone straight to change that. Other bits and pieces, I tried to mend a freezer, chest freezer, and came across these pieces. This is before the compressor, and the compressor seems to have three pins. The live comes in at the top pin, and this is in series in the way. And all this does is if you put an AVO meter across it, it's a short, but if too much current is pulled through it, this will cut off the supply to the compressor. So that's ingoing to the compressor. That's the top pin. The compressor has two coils, a start coil and a run coil. Both coils fire up when it starts, and this unit, a PTC switch, goes across the bottom two pins, and essentially it allows the current from the top to go to the start coil for a time. I think this has a little heating coil and a temperature sensor sensitive resistance or relay, whatever. It's called a PTC. After it started, it will cut one side and just go to run. This I bought off eBay, about £5, £3, the same sort of price for one of these. They were not the originals because the freezer was so old, but it appears that providing you match the contacts and shape, the whole thing will work adequately. And that freezer is also now running. That leaves me one more fridge freezer to fix, and I think I can start a business. Now I hope that has been of some use to you. I'll turn off the super there. I think the main cause of my icing up, the other symptom of course is I had ice coming out, had water coming out of the bottom, and that's because the drain hole did ice up. I think the main cause was not any of the sensors or the heater, it was the fact that the fan was not circulating the cold air around, and then when it went on to its heat cycle it was not pulling the hot air up through the cooling coils and fins, and ice was forming at the top end. That's a quick run through. Hope that's of some use to someone.